Hello, my name is Rebecca, and I am the teacher author behind It's Not Rocket Science. And today I'm going to take you on a little video tour of my anatomy curriculum. All of my curricula are organized the same way, so I'm actually just going to walk you through one of the units within the anatomy curriculum, and it'll give you an idea for how the whole curriculum works. And if you have any other questions at all after watching this, or as you're considering if this is the right purchase for you and resources for your students, please do not hesitate to reach out and email me. I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions prior to purchasing. So in the anatomy curriculum, I divide it into 7 units. I like to see the systems in their broader functions as opposed to just teaching them completely in isolation. So instead of having a unit for each system, I've divided it into these 7 units here. My introduction unit covers a review of key biology topics, an overview of homeostasis, and then an overview of anatomy that includes a brief introduction to histology. My support and motion unit covers the skeletal system, movement and joints, and the muscular system. Control and coordination covers the nervous systems, the senses, and the endocrine system. And this is where I would end before midterms. In the second semester, I would start with transport, which covers blood, the cardiovascular system, and the respiratory system. Unit 5 covers the digestive system. We talk about nutrition and metabolism and the urinary system. Protection is the integumentary, lymphatic, and immune systems. And then last, but most certainly not least, is the reproductive system, or reproduction, where we cover the reproductive systems in males and females, the process of fertilization, and then pregnancy and development. For the sake of this video, I'm going to take you on a tour of the transport unit. Every single one of my units comes with 5 folders: implementation, packets, notes, activities, and assessment. The implementation folder has everything you need to implement. When I first started writing curricula for other people, it was because I was preparing for a maternity leave and a long-term sub that did not teach science. So I wanted to write everything with enough detail for my long-term substitute to be able to do it while I was out. So that's the perspective I take. I also write everything with the first year teacher in mind and thinking about, the first time I was a teacher and also the first time I tackled new subjects that I hadn't taught before, like AP biology. What would I have wished I'd had? And so that's the detail with which you're going to get any of my curricula. So in this implementation folder, there's a lot, but first is you need to start with the read first document. This is your sidekick that's going to guide you through each unit. Now, this is similar, the first few pages are for each unit, because it kind of gives you a lay of the land of how I write things, but then there are some unique attributes of each. So I walk through what's included in each folder, so you have, this is kind of your table of contents for that entire unit. I give you an overview of my strategy for teaching and why I design things the way that I do. I have an overview of how I grade things. I have a 2-category system, and then I weight with points throughout. So I give you some suggestions for how you could grade if you're looking for those types of suggestions. I have a whole list of all the materials that you'll need, and I try to keep it as minimal as possible because my last teaching gig was at a school and I didn't have a science budget. So most of the things can be ordered on Amazon or gotten at Walmart. And then I have like a list of, okay, these are the things you need to print and laminate to use year after year. Then I have day-to-day implementation notes where I walk you through every single day of the unit plan. I write my unit plans 2 ways. First is a 50-minute traditional pace where every day is just one day. This is kind of your overview. This is what I would print and keep on my desk for the duration of the unit. I also taught at a school with 90-minute block periods, so I also include block pacing as well, if that is the pacing that you have. There are also editable versions of these unit plans for you, because I know some schools, have specific formats you have to use, and so this will help you manipulate those. But the read first document is what you're really going to want to look at, especially the first year teaching through the curriculum. It's everything you need in all of the tips. I also include a lot of extra extension resources in here linked. So if you want to do a virtual lab here, they'll be linked. Things like that to help you. A couple of dissection tools. Also, when we get to dissection, there's a link here of walking through the pig dissection that I did with my sister who's a surgeon, just to help you with that. And, excuse me, we're in the transport unit. So this is the sheep part we dissected together. And so that's just to help you and so that you feel prepared walking into anything. Again, I wrote all of this thinking, what do I wish I had? Or if I'm looking back, what do I wish I had had when I first taught whatever subject it may be I'm writing for? So that's all in here for you. Other things in this unit this year, thanks to our pandemic, I've added distance learning tips. So if you're in a hybrid setting or a full virtual, ways that you can make accommodations to use the resources in that way. So there's specific suggestions for different activities. And then I also include, hey, these are the things that you can do fully as they are, and you won't have to make any modifications to it at all. If you're really running low on time, you could even skip all the things that require modifications this year and just do the ones that are easy to do as is. There's also some other random supplementary documents in here. If you are in a state that uses the next generation science standards, I have a whole list of phenomena ideas for you if you're crafting your unit that way. And then also I take each of the instructional resources and I list out the science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts that are covered in those resources and that I considered when writing each of these. I also have a lab report checklist and rubric if you have them write up one of the labs that's in here formally, and then how to write a great study guide resource tool there. Now, the packets are something that is really unique to It's Not Rocket Science. It's something I've done from the very beginning of my teaching career. I hate making copies and I hate students losing their things. And the packet has been such an organizational gift to me and my students. So for every unit, I have all of the student handouts for the entire unit already organized into a packet format. The first 2 pages are where I divide the unit into concepts. So we have an overarching essential question, and then I divide that unit up into concepts. And then within those concepts, I have objectives that I want my students to understand and be able to answer. And then we have key vocabulary terms as well. I have my students write their study guides from these 2 pages at the front of the packet. Also, every single question on a test goes back to an objective or vocabulary term. So you'll never have to sit in a parent-teacher conference or a meeting with admin and have to defend, an unfair test question because they are all fairly covered here. So again, the packet has everything you need from Cornell note outlines for every set of lecture notes, reading assignments, handouts for different practice that you'll do, lab handouts, labeling, station keys, projects with rubrics. Everything is there. So you're only making copies 7 times a year for your students, and you're giving them at the front of the unit everything they need for the entire unit. So labs to everything is right there for you. Also in this folder, I have an editable version of the cover page if you want to change up the objectives and the vocabulary. I have a detailed answer key for you. I have an answer key for that's an animated PowerPoint specifically for the objectives and vocabulary that you can use on review day. And then I also have this PDF document that takes you to the digital version of the packets. So these are accessed by students in Google Slides. You have to make a copy to save to your drive in order to be able to interact with it. But this is a way for students to be able to type into their notes. You can zoom in really easily and zoom out. I also include tips in here if there's a place where they need to scan something or insert an image to label, that kind of thing. I include those guidelines here as well. When I was in the classroom, I let students pick if they wanted to use the paperless digital packet or the printed version. Majority picked the printed, but this has been especially helpful since the pandemic and virtual teaching has become a really big thing. So those are there as well. Here we have all of the notes. All of the PowerPoints are fully animated in presenter mode, so they're ready to go for you. I include teaching tips and different questions and fun facts, supplemental videos in the notes section so that you can jazz up lecture. I never want lecture just to be you spitting out and talking at your students. So I try to include any sort of supplemental things that I can there for you. So I also have all of the lecture videos recorded on my YouTube channel. I have them for biology, physical science, and then of course anatomy. So you can actually preview all the notes.
All right, this is concept 1.
There it is. all of the notes for the entire anatomy curriculum, and you can use these videos even if you don't use my curriculum. So those are available as well. The activities folder is all of the supplemental resources you need to actually administer the different activities. So, for example, one thing that I have made that I love in the anatomy curriculum are these big body diagrams. These are PDFs that your students print. They're 2 pages, but then there's instructions for how you tape them together in a way that they'll fold out of your students' binders, and you'll use them for labeling. I also have these discovery stations I wrote in order to decrease lecture and put the learning into the students' hands. These are station cards you'll print out. Students will walk through these different station cards. They'll label their big body diagram, and then they'll answer questions in their packet. And this is one of the instructional methods I use throughout the anatomy curriculum in order to help students learn the content outside of lecture. For dissections, I do include the dissection pages separate from the packet. One, because if your students are anything like mine, dissection is really messy, so I like to have those resources separate from their packet so their whole packet's not getting messy. And also, I know some of you are in a space where you may not have the financial resources to do all of the dissections that are included in here. So these are separate for you. They're really basic, but it kind of gives your students some walkthrough for how to do it, and then a chart they can fill out with some reflection questions. That's how I do all my dissections. And then when able, I have pictures from my own dissections where I kind of show different things labeled just to help. And you can use these as an answer key. You can use these instructionally, however you want to use those. If there's a lab that either you need a data table for where you're collecting class data, I include Excel spreadsheets for those. Lab stations, I love doing lab stations as well. These are some for the cardiovascular system. Lab stations, I always include the editable versions for you. And then any implementation slides for any of the projects are in here as well. These would be ones you would just project if you're choosing a project topic or something like that. And then last but not least is there's the assessment folder. This is going to be all of your quizzes and tests, and all of my quizzes and tests do come in editable formats and with detailed answer keys. So I hope this helps you get an idea of what you can expect in any of my It's Not Rocket Science units, but especially the anatomy ones. And please, if you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out and ask. I want to help you find the best resources for you and your students, whether that's mine or someone else's. So please don't hesitate to ask, and I look forward to talking to you.